Slate had a headline, Bernie Sanders, gun nut. They go through your record. They talk about how you voted against the Brady Act, how you voted to allow guns on check bags on Amtrak, how you've actually gotten fairly high scores from the NRA. Are you, in fact, Senator, a gun nut?
Well, actually, if you check it out, the last rating I got from the NRA, to the best of my knowledge, was an F. That doesn't quite make me a gun nut. In my state of Vermont, we are a very rural state. What guns are about are hunting, target practice, antique guns, and we have a pretty low crime rate. But I do believe, obviously, that nationally, guns in Baltimore and guns in Los Angeles are very different. I have voted against the importation of assault weapons, and I understand that not every part of America is the state of Vermont.
Earlier this year, the parents of one of the 12 innocent people killed during the Aurora movie theater shooting, they saw their lawsuit to hold ammunition sellers liable for the attack. They saw that dismissed, and one of the reasons was a law that you voted for, which protects manufacturers of firearms and ammunition from being sued. Why did you vote that way?
Well, let me just talk about guns for a moment. We have been yelling and screaming at each other about guns for decades with very little success. I come from a state that has virtually no gun control. But the people of my state understand, I think pretty clearly, that guns in Vermont are not the same thing as guns in Chicago or guns in Los Angeles. In our state, guns are used for hunting. In Chicago, they're used for kids in gangs killing other kids or people shooting at police officers, shooting down innocent people. We need a sensible debate about gun control which overcomes the cultural divide that exists in this country. And I think I can play an important role in this. I voted to ban a semi-automatic assault weapons. I voted to make sure that there's an instant background check. I voted to make sure that guns do not get into the hands of people who should not have them by doing away with the loophole that exists in the gun show legislation. Virtually every campaign that I have been in where the NRA and the gun folks have had a position, they voted and supported, opposed me. In fact, I have about a D- record from the NRA. Now, the issues that you're talking about is if somebody has a gun and it falls into the hands of a murderer and that murderer kills somebody with the gun, do you hold the gun manufacturer responsible? Not any more than you would hold a hammer company responsible if somebody beats somebody over the head with a hammer. That is not what a lawsuit should be about. And this is part, by the way, I may say, of, folks who do not like guns is fine. But we have millions of people who are gun owners in this country. 99.9% of those people obey the law. I want to see real serious debate and action on guns. But it is not going to take place if we simply have extreme positions on both sides. I think I can bring us to the middle.
It is not right for people to own assault rifles. It's not right for regular people. There's no reason for it. How are you going to stop the NRA?
And this is very important. It's important for states like New Hampshire and Vermont and rural states all over this country. So let me be very clear about it. There are, in my state and in your state, tens of thousands of people who own guns, who hunt, who do target practice, and go to antique gun shows. 99.9% of those people are law-abiding people. And I respect, and we should all respect, different lifestyles. That is a lifestyle that I respect. I have seen and been with families, mom, dad, and kids go out into the woods, they enjoy nature, and that is what they do. And they should not be condemned, and they should not be stigmatized. I think, frankly, that I can play a very good role in the debate over gun control for the following reasons. I come from a state which has virtually no gun control at all, none. And so I have to tell you, it took a little bit of courage on my part to vote for a ban on assault weapons. To vote for instant background checks. To vote to end this gun show loophole, all right, which is a very serious problem. I have voted for all of those things. And not everybody in my state agreed with me. But here's what I think. I may be wrong, but this is what I think. I think in states like Vermont, New Hampshire, and rural states all over this country, where people do hunt, where people do own guns, what people also understand here and in Vermont is that guns in our part of the world, and in my state, thank God, we have a very low crime rate and relatively few instances of people using guns to kill people. Thank God. But what people in Vermont, and I suspect New Hampshire, understand is that guns in our part of the world are very different than guns in Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York. Guns in Chicago mean that young people who are in gangs are killing other young people or shooting at police officers or involved in the drug trade. Very different understanding of guns and reality of guns in those areas than in rural areas. What we have got to do, and I think honestly I'm in a pretty good position to do, is to come forward with a common sense proposal on guns that will have the support of not of everybody, but of a significant majority of the American people. For example, not too many people in America believe that we should allow guns to get into the hands, frankly, of people who should not have them, right? All right? Who disagrees with it? It's hard to disagree with that. You know, we know people who are suicidal, who are homicidal. They should not have guns. People who have criminal records should not have guns. People who have come out of psychiatric institutes should not have guns. I hope and I believe that in America there's not much debate about that. So we need an instant background check. I would hope that that is widely supported. Now, your point about assault weapons, I agree with that also. Hunters, vast majority of hunters, do not use semi-assault weapons when they hunt, all right? They don't need it. And they don't have magazines that can shoot 30 bullets at a time. So I would hope that as a nation we would ban these types of assault weapons so they don't get into the hands of people who are gun dealers or out shooting at police officers. I would hope that we can agree on that. And I hope that we could agree that it's stupid to have loopholes so that if you went to a gun show, you can buy all the guns you need without a background check. That doesn't make sense. So these, among others, and I'm open to other ideas, but here is the point. People in urban America cannot demonize or stereotype people in rural America because they own guns and they hunt. People in rural America who hunt have got to understand that guns in Chicago and LA mean a very different thing than guns in Vermont and New Hampshire. And if we can come to that understanding and cross this cultural divide, we can finally come up with common sense gun solutions that the vast majority of the American people will support.
You have a lot of issues today, particularly this shooting at the Coral Ridge Mall recently. You talked a little about gun control. How important of an issue is that to you?
It's important. It's been important to me for a long time because I think there is a very clear path to protecting the rights of gun owners and following the Second Amendment while doing more to keep guns out of the hands of people that should not have them. And I feel very strongly about that. To me, it's a critical safety issue. And we've seen too many mass shootings in our country, and we've seen too many of the kind of tragedies that you had here just last month. So I am strongly supporting it and hoping that we can make some progress on this issue.
As president, what common sense gun laws would you work at passing in order to reduce such needless loss of life so that our grandchildren won't be facing such a violent world?
First of all, thank you and thank the other moms who demand action. I feel so strongly that we are way out of balance here. I want to do what I can as president and to support states and cities to have some common sense violence prevention, gun regulations and laws. Now here in Nevada, you'll have a chance to vote on an initiative next in the 2016 election, right? And I hope that you will all take that very seriously. You see, I don't see any conflict between the legitimate protection of Second Amendment rights and protecting people from gun violence from people who should never have guns in the first place. And all the surveys I've shown show that a majority of Americans and a majority of gun owners support universal background checks. And not just the checks, but getting them to work. You know, that young man who murdered those 9 people at Bible study in the church in Charleston should never have gotten that gun. They were waiting on the information, and 3 days went by, and under the rules, he got to get the gun. But at what cost? That young man murdered in a church 9 good people who welcomed him in to be part of their prayers. And you could go through all of the other mass killings, but it's also important to remember a lot of them don't make headlines anymore. The domestic violence cases, the random shootings. I mean, a man was with his grandchildren in one of our national parks. He was making s'mores. You know what s'mores are? The grain crackers and the marshmallows and the chocolate over the campfire. People just shooting for the heck of it, who weren't educated, who weren't responsible. A straight bullet killed him as he sat at the campfire with his grandchildren. So I guess I will do whatever I can. I am not afraid of this fight. I am not backing off from this fight because it has gone way too far in one direction, and we need to get back to some balance.
Can you help to make some sense how to stand your ground? That makes no sense to me. I mean, you can stand your ground, but if nobody's doing it to you, you can shoot somebody and get away with it. That's the problem. So that's my issue. What could you do about standing your ground?
Well, as you know, most of the stand your ground laws are state and local laws, right? But I think we could do more at the federal level to work with states, work with law enforcement, work with communities to point out that, yes, there is a role in extreme situations to defend yourself and defend your home. But unfortunately, what we've seen too much of in the last few years is a spate of people who have reached for a gun before they really figured out what was going on. They've been much too eager to use that gun. We've seen it with policing, and we've seen it with civilians. And it is something that I think, I've thought a lot about it. I don't understand it exactly, but I think, you know, the media today gets everybody whipped up about stuff. And I think a lot of people are living with a level of fear and insecurity that is not necessarily realistic. And therefore they get on, what we would say, a trigger's edge. And they go for their guns instead of saying, why is this happening? And what more can we do? And certainly the police, first and foremost, they need to be trained and held accountable and disciplined in a way that prevents the sort of reaction that we've seen way too much of. And with civilians, I just think a lot of these stand your ground laws need to be rewritten so that, yes, if somebody is breaking into your home and you are in imminent danger, or you go to your door and you see something that is deeply concerning, well, the first thing you should do is call 911. But the second thing, if you have to defend yourself, okay. But look at some of the instances we've had. Trayvon Martin, look at that. That was absolutely hard for me to understand. The young man who was shot in the car because the music he was playing was too loud. I mean, what is going on there? That wasn't stand your ground. That was just an overreaction. That was a kind of, knee-jerk reaction by somebody who had that gun. So we could go through the list. I don't know what the laws are here in Nevada, but I think that every state needs to take a hard look. Nobody should want to create circumstances in which innocent, unarmed people are killed, either by law enforcement or by civilians wielding guns. And we've got to figure out how to deal with that.
Thank you. Thank you all. First of all, I was so just stricken to think that these two young people doing the work that you guys do every single day would be murdered on live television. And I will extend my condolences and sympathies to their families and to their co-workers and pray for the woman who, last I checked, was still in critical condition. But I will also reiterate, we have got to do something about gun violence in America. And I will take it on. There are many people who face it and know it, but then turn away because it's hard. It's a very political, difficult issue in America. But I believe we are smart enough, we are compassionate enough to figure out how to balance the legitimate Second Amendment rights with preventive measures and control measures so that whatever motivated this murderer, who eventually took his own life, we will not see more deaths, needless, senseless deaths. So yes, I feel just great heartache at what happened, and I want to reiterate how important it is we not let yet another terrible instance go by without trying to do something more to prevent this incredible killing that is stalking our country. And we've had so many terrible instances of it in the last 2 years, but it happens every day. Intentional, unintentional, murder, suicide, it happens every day. And there is so much evidence that if guns were not so readily available, if we had universal background checks, if we could just put some time out between the person who's upset because he got fired or the domestic abuse or whatever other motivation may be working on someone who does this, that maybe we could prevent this kind of carnage. So I hope that in addition to expressing sympathy for those directly affected, that this is maybe for the media, for the public, for elected officials, for every American, what it hopefully will finally take for us to act. Thanks.